When a cruel biker kicked a homeless man's dog in a supermarket parking lot, he was completely unaware that Barron Trump was watching. What began as just another day ignored by the world quickly turned into an event no one in that parking lot would ever forget. Something cruel was about to happen, but by a twist of fate, someone was about to appear at the right time and the right place to change everything. But before we dive into this story, tell us where you're watching this from. Share your city or country in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we'll have another inspiring story made just for you. The supermarket parking lot was running at its usual pace. Shopping carts squeaked as people, absorbed in their routines, hurried to complete their daily tasks. In a more isolated corner, almost invisible to most, a homeless man sat on the ground. He held a worn cardboard sign that read, "Help me," next to him. A dog with a mottled coat lay quietly, observing the surroundings with attentive yet calm eyes. Every now and then, the man reached out to stroke the animal, who responded with a slight wag of its tail, a simple gesture, but one filled with companionship. Their bond was deeper than words could describe. A few weeks earlier, on one of the coldest and loneliest nights of his life, the man believed he wouldn't live to see the morning without shelter. Burning with fever and consumed by exhaustion, he sat in that very spot, nearly giving up. Then, like a small miracle, the dog appeared. It didn't bark or make a fuss, it simply lay down beside him, warming him with its body and bringing a presence that, in an inexplicable way, seemed to say, "You're not alone." When the sun rose that morning, the fever had subsided and the man felt that something inside him had shifted. From that day on, they became inseparable. The dog wasn't just a companion, it was the reason he still found the strength to face another day. And there they were in that secluded corner, carrying on their quiet routine while the world around them remained indifferent. Until, in an instant, something no one could have predicted was about to happen. Suddenly, the thunderous roar of a motorcycle echoed through the parking lot, turning every head in its direction. The bike came to an abrupt stop, the engine still growling loudly as the atmosphere seemed to shift. Something heavy, something cruel, was approaching, and the fragile bubble of peace in that corner was about to be shattered. The roar of the motorcycle went silent, but it left behind a tension in the air like a storm about to break. The figure who got off the bike was tall and broad, wearing a worn leather jacket and boots that echoed against the asphalt. He pulled off his helmet, revealing a weathered face with a cold smile that promised nothing good. His eyes scanned the parking lot until they fixed on the secluded corner where the man and his dog were sitting. The biker started walking slowly, each step echoing like a countdown. He seemed to savor the discomfort he caused, noticing how people around him averted their gaze to avoid him. When he was just a few steps away from the homeless man, he stopped, tilted his head, and let out a dry laugh. "Well, look at the show we've got here," his voice dripped with disdain. "A bum in his mud. Bet that dog's worth more than you." The man sitting on the ground briefly raised his eyes but quickly lowered them, avoiding confrontation. His nervous hands gripped the cardboard sign even tighter. The dog beside him let out a low growl, instinctively placing itself between the biker and its owner. "What's the matter, dog?" the biker mocked, leaning forward slightly as if speaking directly to the animal. "Gonna bite me? Gonna defend this piece of trash you call your owner? I bet you're the only one who cares about him. Please just leave us alone," the man said in a weak, almost inaudible voice, heavy with desperation. He reached out to hold onto the dog as if he could shield it. "Leave you alone?" the biker laughed again, stepping closer. "You two shouldn't even be here. This is a parking lot, not a dump. People like you just get in the way of those trying to live their lives." The man tried to respond, but the words seemed to die in his throat. He lowered his head, stroking the dog, which now bared its teeth, its defensive posture only fueling the biker's anger. "Look at this, it thinks it can scare me," the biker taunted, staring at the dog. "Bet it doesn't even bark, right? Just a pathetic excuse for an animal, just like its owner." He raised his foot, pretending to kick the dog. The dog instinctively backed away and the man cried out, "No, please don't hurt him." The biker straightened up, laughing once more. "Don't hurt him? Maybe you should teach this mutt to respect who's in charge around here." The atmosphere grew heavier and the biker's expression turned even crueler. He took another step forward, his shadow now completely covering the man and his dog. The smile on his face hinted that he was about to act. But before he could do anything, a firm voice cut through the air. "Enough said." A man, his voice deep and filled with determination, approached. Everyone in the parking lot froze, their eyes turning toward the figure. The calmness in his posture concealed something powerful, and at that moment, fate began to take an unexpected turn. The firm voice echoed through the parking lot, bringing with it a sudden silence. People who had been ignoring the scene turned their heads, searching for the source of such unexpected authority. The biker spun around abruptly, his expression of disdain giving way to irritated curiosity. He squinted, trying to identify who had dared to interfere. From between the rows of cars, a figure walked calmly toward the commotion. It was impossible not to recognize that face, unmistakable even to those who weren't fans of politics, Barron Trump. He was dressed simply in dark jeans, a black t-shirt, and a lightweight leather jacket. His steps were deliberate, his expression serious but not threatening. When he stopped just a few meters from the scene, he looked directly at the biker, unwavering. "Do you think this is right?" Barron asked, his voice calm but weighted with authority that made the biker hesitate for a brief moment. "Who the hell do you think you are?" The biker shot back, trying to mask his surprise with arrogance. He let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, of course, the big name here to give a moral lesson." "What a joke." Barron stepped forward, ignoring the provocation. "This isn't about me, it's about you. About what you're doing to them." He gestured toward the homeless man and the dog, now huddled together on the ground. "They shouldn't even be here," the biker shouted, trying to regain his composure. "They're just taking up space and bothering people." Barron tilted his head slightly, assessing the man before him. "And you think hurting someone or something that can't defend itself makes you stronger? Or does it just reveal who you really are?" The biker, visibly unsettled, took a step forward, trying to intimidate. "Look, I don't need a sermon from a kid. You might be a big name, but out here, you're just another guy." Barron didn't flinch. "And you're just another man filled with anger. But your anger doesn't justify hurting others." His gaze shifted to the bottle the biker was holding, partially hidden by his leg. "And it certainly doesn't justify driving drunk." The words landed like a bomb. The biker faltered for a moment but quickly tried to recover. "You don't know anything about me," he yelled, his voice defensive. "Maybe I don't," Barron replied calmly, "but what everyone here is seeing right now says a lot about you." The people around who had been quietly observing began to murmur. The social pressure was mounting, and the biker seemed to realize the situation was slipping out of his control. The tension in the air was palpable, and the biker clenched his fists, clearly torn between confronting Barron or backing down. Before he could make a decision, Barron stepped closer, looking him directly in the eyes with a firmness that seemed to disarm any violent intent. "So what's it going to be?" Barron asked, his voice steady as a rock. Something was about to happen that would change the course of the story forever. The biker was breathing heavily, his eyes locked on Barron as if trying to decipher the man who dared challenge him in public. The tension between them was almost tangible, the air around seeming to grow thicker. The gathering crowd, which was starting to grow larger, murmured words of support for Barron. Some even pulled out their phones, recording the scene. The biker noticed the cameras pointed in his direction and clenched his teeth, visibly irritated. "You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone?" he shouted, pointing a finger at Barron, his voice loud and aggressive. "You might be a big name, but that doesn't mean anything here." Barron remained calm, his hands relaxed at his sides. "I'm not trying to humiliate you," he replied. "I'm trying to stop you from doing something you'll regret." The biker let out a dry, sarcastic laugh. "Regret? It's easy to talk about regret when you've got millions in the bank. People like you don't know what it's like to be in the gutter." Barron tilted his head slightly, his eyes still locked on the biker. "The anger you're feeling has nothing to do with me or him," he said, nodding toward the homeless man. "It's inside you, and all you're doing now is spreading it to people who don't deserve it." Barron's words seemed to strike something deep. For a brief moment, the biker looked away, his posture wavering, but he quickly raised his voice again, trying to reassert control over the situation. "You don't know anything about me," the biker shouted again, his voice now hoarse. "You don't know what I've been through, what I've lost, so don't tell me what's right or wrong." Barron took another step forward, closing the distance even more. He was now close enough to catch the strong scent of alcohol emanating from the biker. "Maybe I don't," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "but I can see you're lost, and what you're doing right now isn't going to bring anything back. It's only going to push you further down." The biker took a step back as if Barron's words had broken through part of his emotional armor. He looked at the bottle in his hand, his eyes flickering between anger and confusion. But then, as if trying to reassert his authority, he raised the bottle slightly, looking directly at Barron. "If you think you can stop me, why don't you try?" he challenged, a crooked smile forming on his face. Before he could act, something unexpected happened. A loud, piercing sound echoed through the parking lot, a whistle, sharp and deafening. Everyone turned toward its source, but no one could have predicted what was about to unfold. Fate seemed to be setting up another surprising twist for the scene. The sharp whistle echoed through the parking lot, cutting through the tense moment like a spark in the darkness. The biker, still clutching the bottle, whipped his head toward the sound, his expression filled with irritation. Barron also turned, quickly analyzing the source of the unexpected interruption. From the other side of the parking lot, an older man with a simple appearance and an unmistakable air of authority approached with firm steps. He wore a faded security uniform, but there was something in his posture that exuded confidence. As he drew closer, he stopped, crossing his arms as he assessed the scene. "Hey you," the security guard said, his voice deep but controlled. "Drop it now?" He pointed at the bottle in the biker's hand. "Who the hell do you think you are?" the biker retorted, clearly irritated by the interference. "Go back to your corner, this has nothing to do with you." "It does," the security guard replied, his tone unwavering. "You're drunk, threatening people, and disturbing the peace, and that's not something I'm going to ignore." The biker let out a nervous laugh, but there was a hint of unease in his posture. He glanced around, realizing the crowd was still growing. More and more people were watching, phones raised, ready to capture every second. The social pressure was mounting like a wave about to crash over him. Barron seized the distraction, stepping forward again. "You can still stop," he said. "Put it down and walk away before this gets worse. You have a choice here." The biker tightened his grip on the bottle, his knuckles turning white, his eyes darting between the security guard, Barron, and the homeless man who was now holding the dog tightly. He looked ready to snap, but something seemed to be holding him back. "This is a joke," he muttered, his voice shaky. "You all think you're better than me. You think you can judge me, but I won't let you." He raised the bottle slightly as if trying to prove something to himself and everyone else. Before he could follow through, something unexpected happened. The dog, who had been silent and alert until now, let out a loud, piercing bark that echoed through the parking lot. The sound was so sudden and intense that the biker froze, his hand stopping midair. Everyone's eyes turned to the dog, now standing tall, staring at the biker with a courage that seemed larger than its small frame. It was as if the little animal had decided it wouldn't allow any more harm. In that moment, the course of the story was about to shift once again. The dog's bark echoed through the parking lot, a bold cry of defiance. Though small and vulnerable, the mutt stood its ground, staring down the biker with unyielding determination. The biker froze, momentarily stunned, before sneering at the dog. "A mutt? You've got to be kidding me," he growled, gripping the bottle tightly. Barron stepped forward. "It's not just a dog," he said, his voice steady. "It's a friend, and it seems to have more courage than many of us." The crowd murmured their support. "Leave them alone." The biker grew visibly agitated, glancing around at the growing audience. "You think my life's easy?" he shouted, venting his frustration. "That guy shouldn't even be here." Barron, now standing closer, spoke calmly. "Maybe this is the only place he has. Maybe all he has is that dog's friendship. But what you're doing doesn't help, it only spreads more pain." The biker hesitated, Barron's words hitting hard. Slowly, his grip on the bottle loosened and his shoulders slumped in defeat. He turned toward his motorcycle, pausing briefly before muttering, "I'm just tired." With that, he climbed onto his bike and rode off, leaving behind a quieter, reflective crowd. Barron knelt beside the homeless man and his dog. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. The man nodded tearfully, thanking him. Barron offered a card for a veterinary clinic. "Take him there, they'll help him, and they can help you too." The man, overwhelmed with gratitude, held the card close as Barron walked away. Applause rippled through the crowd, and the man hugged his loyal dog, a symbol of hope amidst hardship. Sometimes a simple act of kindness can change lives. Never underestimate the power of compassion, whether it comes from a stranger or a four-legged friend. If you enjoyed the story, explore more tales of hope and resilience. Click to watch.